Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the Sovereign States. Appreciate you checking out the channel. This is the inaugural video of this channel. Well, the first real video, not counting the trailer anyway. And instead of tiptoeing, trying to kind of creep along, I figure I would just dive right into the deep end and get into a pretty heavy topic right away. So we're going to talk about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and the verdict that we just heard of, last Friday, I think. And first of all, let me just say that the situation with Kyle Rittenhouse is just an ugly, horrible situation. There's nothing good about it. The fact that two people were ended and another one was wounded, that's bad. It's bad across the board. And what happened with Kyle is also bad. All the writing that was going on was bad. The breakdown of civil authority was bad. Everything about it is just bad. That is not a desirable situation for anyone, anywhere. So let's just lay that out at the very beginning. Kyle Rittenhouse is not a hero. I don't think he would call himself a hero. I don't think he wants people calling him a hero. Okay, no one has ever been a hero because they ended people, because they made people departed and defunct. That does not make one a hero. It's like Yoda said, wars not make one great. And ending people is not a good thing. Chris Kyle from American Sniper was not a hero because he ended people. He was a hero because he was willing to put his life on the line in very dangerous situations to protect other people, people he didn't even know. He was willing to risk himself being ended and take on the burden of ending others to protect people. That's what made him a hero. That's what makes our men and women in uniform heroes. That's what makes police officers heroes and so forth. It's that they're willing to risk everything to protect people, particularly people they don't even know and have absolutely no connection to at all. Kyle Rittenhouse is not a hero in this situation. Okay? He's just a kid who was in a terrible situation, and he did what he had to do. Okay? Secondly, nobody deserves to be shot. Nobody. Not in war, not anywhere. The reason I say that is because who is qualified to decide that someone else deserves to be pew-pewed? Who? Nobody is qualified to make that determination. But this situation, like so many others, is not about deserving or not deserving. Okay, this situation is one person who was physically attacked by others and did what was necessary to protect himself. And it's a tragedy that it was necessary, but it was just the same. So let's start off, now that that's being said, let's start off with natural law. So I'm no expert on natural law. I'm not a John Locke scholar by any stretch of the imagination. But my understanding of natural law is that it is the state of things when a civil authority does not exist. So if it was just complete anarchy, then natural law would be the rule of the day. And in natural law, we have a natural right to our life. Our life, our time on this earth, and our ability to stay alive, to exist. It belongs to us. It belongs to no one else. No one else has a claim on our life, our existence, or our time on this earth. We know that is true. Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration pointed it out as self-evident. Why is it self-evident? Because nothing else makes sense. It would not make any sense at all for somebody else to have a claim on anybody else's life, anybody else's time on this earth. Because why do they deserve somebody else's life? Why do they deserve somebody else's time? So nothing else makes sense. So it is self-evident in that regard. We own our life. We also own our physical person. Nobody else has a claim on our physical person. Nobody else has a right to hurt, to attack, to damage our physical person. And that is also self-evident. Why? Because nothing else makes sense. Why should somebody else have a claim on your physical form? Why? Well, the answer is they don't, and you have no claim on anyone else's either. So the my body, my choice argument from, abortion supporters, while I might disagree with them in that particular context, they're not wrong in the sense that they do own their body. They are right about that. That is natural law, plain and simple. Same with people who are opposed to jab mandates, the Fauci ouchie. They're also right. Why should anyone get to dictate to you what you have to put inside your body? Natural law. Nobody has a right to your physical body. Right to property is also inherent in natural law. What is mine, what I own, what is my property is mine. No one has a right to steal or destroy my property, and I have no claim on anyone else's either to steal or destroy. So that is natural law. All of our natural rights come from natural law. All of the constitutional rights we have are based in natural law. Constitutional rights, we call them that because they're in the Constitution, but they're really a recognition of rights that preceded government. Preceded not just our government, any government anywhere. They are natural. Every human being has these same rights. And in that regard, we are all equal. That's the equality that we're all talking about here, that Jefferson was talking about in the Declaration, is we're all equal. We have the same rights. Everybody does. And natural law is there to govern and protect those rights. Now, anarchy is not desirable. I know many of the ANCAPs out there and anarchists and so forth would disagree on that, but I'm not an anarchist. I don't believe that anarchy is appropriate. I don't think it's desirable. Now, that being the case, civil law, civil authority should be based on natural law as its foundation. You start with natural law and then you build up from there. Why civil law and civil authority is desirable over the anarchy of just straight natural law is because it reduces, by a great degree, the chaos inherent in people having to defend their natural rights themselves. It doesn't eliminate that need, but it does greatly reduce it because it creates a process and a mechanism for handling violations of our natural rights in a civil and due process way, so to speak. So that is a very desirable aspect of the civil society. But all law needs to be predicated on natural law and natural rights, or it starts becoming pretty illegitimate pretty quickly. Now, this ties in directly to the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. When the civil authority is unavailable or fails to act, there is a void that is created. And that void is going to be filled by something. And it's going to be filled pretty much all the time by natural law. Natural law is going to take over when the civil law breaks down. Now, that is not, like I said, a desirable outcome. It's a necessary one, but it's not desirable because it creates chaos and anarchy, and there's no process, and natural law is very absolute, very ugly, and very final in a lot of different cases. Because when we're forced to defend our natural rights ourselves, there's no real guidelines and rules. I mean, a lot of times when we're having to defend our natural rights ourselves, we're having to make split-second decisions like Kyle Rittenhouse had to, and it always creates a horrible situation, at least most of the time. So in this particular case, the civil authority in Kenosha was pulled back. They were not intervening in the chaos of those riots, of those nights. And when that happens, civil authority completely breaks down, natural law is going to take over. We have to be defenders of our natural rights when the civil authority is absent. Now, in the case where we're having to defend our life or our physical person from attack, you have to be really lucky. for the civil authority to be right there to protect you. It's very rare that happens. The police are hardly ever going to be in the right place at the right time. They can't be everywhere. That being the case, we have to be the defenders of our life and our physical person in those situations, as it was with the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. Now, Mr. Rittenhouse was attacked, and he had to defend himself because there was no other mechanism in place at that moment, or in those moments, at that time, that could protect him. He really had no choice in the matter as far as his ability to defend his life and his physical person. So he could either act on his own, per natural law, to defend his natural rights, specifically his life and his physical person, or he could be hurt, possibly ended. Another thing that's pretty telling is that he tried to run away. He tried to run away. The first person to attack him, Mr. Rosenbaum, he chased him. And Mr. Rittenhouse ran. Okay? He tried to get away, but he couldn't for a lot of different reasons. And he turned around, Mr. Rosenbaum lunged at him, and that was that. Like, again, terrible situation. But, he did what was necessary in the situation to protect his life and his physical person. Then the crowd starts getting riled up. And, what do you expect to happen? This was a crowd of people that was already riled up, rioting up to no good, doing all sorts of things that, they may never do individually on their own. But when you get in a mob mentality, the madness of crowds, it doesn't take long for civility to break down, unfortunately. That's an aspect of the human condition. And that was what was going on here. And everyone starts yelling and screaming, get him, cranium him. I mean, they were saying all sorts of stuff. So naturally, he's scared. He didn't want to use that self-defense device that he had on anyone. He didn't want to do that. I think that's blatantly obvious. He didn't want to use it again. So he did the only thing he could do was he got out of there as quickly as he could. He started running down the road. The mob is chasing him. Then you have a bunch of people, including Mr. Huber, Mr. Grosskreutz, who had no idea what was going on. They just hear a bunch of people yelling, get him, he just pew-pewed somebody, get him. They didn't know. They didn't see it. They had no idea what happened. But they choose to attack him anyway, along with the jump kick guy. And again, Mr. Rittenhouse did the only thing he could when Mr. Huber smacked him over the head with a skateboard, tried to cave in his face for him, and tried to take his self-defense device. Did the only thing he could. And then Mr. Grosskreutz runs up to him. And it was pretty telling as well when Mr. Rittenhouse did not use his device when Mr. Grosskreutz had his hands up. But then Mr. Grosskreutz, according to his own testimony, assuming that he had a jam or a malfunction of some kind to his device, ran up, stuck his own device in Mr. Rittenhouse's face, and reached for his device, and after which Mr. Rittenhouse, well, we know what happened. Nothing that Mr. Rittenhouse did violated natural law. What the other guys did, Mr. Rosenbaum, Mr. Huber, and Mr. Grosskreutz, what they did violate natural law and the natural rights of Mr. Rittenhouse. Now, what they said, of course, was, we thought he was an active shooter. An active shooter is actually shooting. I don't buy that argument for a second. Because the only person so far that night who had been ended, or at least neutralized, I suppose, by Mr. Rittenhouse was Mr. Rosenbaum, who had physically attacked them, and none of the people that were chasing him, at least there at the end, who were involved in the incident, had any clue. They didn't know. All they heard was the crowd yelling, and they see this kid running, and they just decide, you know what, I'm just going to go after him. Again, the madness of crowds, man. So then they decide that, as I said, they're going to attack him, violating his natural rights again, just like Mr. Rosenbaum did. And, we all know what happened. Mr. Rittenhouse also didn't violate the laws of Wisconsin. And the jury, with their verdict, made that perfectly clear. Now, getting back to the active pew-pew situation, that's the excuse that they used. If that were really true, particularly with regards to Mr. Grosskreutz and his testimony on the stand, if it were really true that he thought Mr. Rittenhouse was an active pew-pewer, if that's true, then why didn't he just let him go to the police or escort him to the police? Why didn't he just do that? It was very blatantly obvious that that's where he was going. Why? Because first of all, he told Mr. Grosskreutz that. That's number one. Number two, the police were like a block away. You could see their lights very clearly. They had their big armored vehicles, lights shining. Everybody could see them. So if you really, if the goal was to hold him until the police could get there, and then you could turn him over to the police as an active pew-pewer, why wouldn't you just let him go to the police? If you're concerned that he lied and was trying to get away and bypass the police, well, then you could just escort him and say, here, I'll get you there, or I'm going to go with you, or whatever, just to make sure that he actually did turn himself into the police. But they didn't do that. No, they tried to smash his face in. First with the jump kick guy's foot, and then with Mr. Huber's skateboard, and then Mr. Grosskreutz stuck his own device in Kyle Rittenhouse's face. I'm sorry, I don't buy that argument for a second. No. The fact is that Mr. Rittenhouse did what was necessary to defend his life and his physical person. And I hate that he had to do that. Okay? I don't care about Mr. Rosenbaum's history in the context of his life. Okay? It's not good that he was made defunct. That's not good. Same for Mr. Huber. It is not good that he is now departed. That is not good. And I really feel for their families and their loved ones. I feel bad for them because they didn't do anything. Their family, these guys' families didn't do anything. So I feel bad for them, very badly, for them. And I don't. It's not a good thing, no matter what they've done in their past, no matter their criminal history or whatever. These were not angels. These were not great beacons of virtue, especially Mr. Rosenbaum. But I'm still not going to say it is a good thing what happened to them. It's not. It's a terrible thing. So the prosecutor in the case, these prosecutors were horrible. They were freaking awful. I really wish the judge would have held them in contempt after the case was over, or somebody brings them up on prosecutorial misconduct, because they were awful. Withholding evidence and the video that they didn't give to the defense, and withholding the name of Jump Kick Man from the defense. That is so awful. Okay, that they should not be able to just do that kind of thing without any sort of consequence. So first of all. Second of all, these prosecutors clearly have no recognition of natural law, or they don't believe in natural rights at all. That one idiot said, "Well, this is just like a bar fight." Put up a picture of Roadhouse. Really? Really? Come on, man. That is ridiculous. This was nothing like Roadhouse. This was not a bar fight. This was one guy attacking another guy for no reason at all. Mr. Rosenbaum attacking Rittenhouse for no reason at all. He just felt like it. And then Mr. Huber attacked Mr. Rittenhouse. He had no idea why. He just did it because the crowd was yelling, madness of crowds, mob mentality, and he just did it. Same thing with Mr. Grosskreutz. They didn't have to do that. They didn't need to do that. There was no reason for them to do that. They just did it because they felt like it. Now, in that situation where Mr. Rittenhouse or anybody gets attacked by somebody else for no reason at all, why should that be a fair fight? Why should that have to be a fair fight? Somebody attacks me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't provoke them. I didn't do anything to cause that. They just felt like doing it. And they're attacking me with their bare hands and feet. First of all, you could be ended with bare hands and feet. It's not that hard. That's number one. Number two, why should I only be able to defend myself with an equal implement to my attacker? Why? I don't owe them anything. They're attacking me. Why should I have to do anything? So I don't want that to be a fair fight. And it's almost never going to be anyway. Okay, I am not a big dude. I am 5'10", I weigh 150 pounds. There are very few guys out there that don't outweigh me by at least 20 pounds. I don't have any training. I don't have any combat experience. How in the world am I supposed to defend myself against someone who's 6'6", 250 pounds? I can't. The only thing I could do is run away and hope I could get away. What if I can't get away? Then it's hopeless. There is absolutely nothing I can do, really, to defend myself against someone who outweighs me and is so much stronger than me. That's not even considering women. You know, where most men are just naturally going to be physically stronger than most women. If a woman gets attacked by a bigger, stronger guy trying to do awful things or what have you, I don't want it to be a fair fight. I want her to have every single advantage. And if that means she has a self-defense device like Mr. Rittenhouse had, great, so be it. Again, the result of that encounter is not necessarily desirable, but it was also not desirable for that guy to attack that woman in that scenario. Would the alternative be more desirable? That is, she gets beaten up, ended, maybe, I don't know. I mean, would that be better? The self-defense devices we're talking about, they are the great equalizer. There is a reason we have a Second Amendment right. The Second Amendment is just recognizing a natural right we already have. That's the right to self-defense. And those self-defense devices are the great equalizer. That's what allows people my size, that's what allows women to defend themselves against anybody. Doesn't mean we'll always be successful, but at least we have a chance, a fighting chance against people we would not have a chance against without that device. Another idiotic thing the prosecutor said was, sometimes we just have to take our beatings. No, we don't. No, we don't. There is nothing in natural law, and should be nothing in the law, in civil law, that necessitates that we have our faces caved in because someone else decided to attack us. We don't have to submit to anything. That's ridiculous. If someone attacks me, I am under no obligation to, not defend myself in any way I can. And when that happens, I mean, it's not like you have a referee who's going to pause the fight to give me a chance to get my bearings. No, that's not the way it works. We do not have to submit to being injured or ended if the only alternative we have is to use a self-defense device against someone who doesn't have one. Maybe they should have thought about that before they chose to attack another human being. Now, in this case, when we're talking about people wanting to attack other people, I want those people to know that the risk to their life and their physical person is really high. That they're risking a lot to attack another human being, because the chances are likely that that other human being has a self-defense device. I want those criminals, people who are up to no good, who have ill intent, who want to attack other people, I want them to be more afraid of the people they're attacking than that person is of them. That seems to me a great disincentive to crime, a great disincentive to people attacking other people. And make no mistake about it, natural law says when you choose to attack another human being without provocation, to steal from them, to end them, whatever, just to hurt them, it doesn't matter. You are choosing to risk the forfeiture of your own life. You are forfeiting your life by choice. Again, this is not desirable. This is not what I want. This is not what anyone should want. Okay, I don't want anyone to be ended. I don't want anyone to be hurt. But if the choice is between someone who chose to attack another human being and the person being attacked, if one of them has to get hurt or, God forbid, ended, I want it to be the person doing the attacking. Again, not a desirable outcome, but it's better than the alternative if that is the only alternative available. So, circling back around to the Rittenhouse situation, the verdict was correct. It was the best possible outcome to a terrible and tragic situation in which there are no winners. There's nothing good about it. Justice was done in this case, but no outcome would feel good or correct. I'm glad that he's not going to prison. I don't think he deserves that. Okay? But it's still, nothing about it, is good or wholesome or, or wonderful. So ultimately, I'm glad that the case turned out as it did. I really do not want this to happen again. I really wish, first and foremost, that these politicians, these governors, these mayors would get control of the situation when this type of rioting and so forth starts, and get the police to put a stop to it. We don't need any other situations like that. Protesting is great. Making your voice heard is great. I'm not even against a little civil disobedience. But when you go after people who have nothing to do with anything and start destroying their property or attacking them or whatever, I'm sorry, I have no sympathy for you at all. Don't do that. And no one else is going to sympathize with you either. I mean, the approval and support for the BLM movement has dropped dramatically. And I think that has a lot to do with the rioting that went on. People getting attacked, people being ended. And you're going to lose support, any popular support for any sort of movement or political idea or whatever, if that kind of violence takes place. So police, civil authorities have to put a stop to that, or natural law takes over and you have situations like this, and they're not good. They're bad. We don't want this kind of thing to happen. That's it for today. Appreciate you checking out the channel. If you like what you've seen, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified when I put in some new videos. Until next time, this is Brian. This is the Sovereign States. Thanks a lot.